السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونستنصره، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا، لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأشهد أن نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. يقول جل جلاله في محكم التنزيل: زعم الذين كفروا أن لن يبعثوا، قل بلى وربي لتبعثن ثم لتنبؤن بما عملتم وذلك على الله يسير، فآمنوا بالله ورسوله والنور الذي أنزلنا والله بما تعملون خبير. Before I start with the topic of the khutbah, I think it's worthy of taking a moment to recognize what happened over the last week and what I believe is the appropriate response for Muslims who are living in the West or generally speaking outside of Gaza. I think we are entitled for a moment of relief. I think we can take a moment of relief. I don't think we're in any position to be celebrating on the outside. With 50,000 people who have been taken away from us, families that have been wiped off the map to the point where there's no one left amongst them to mourn them. You see, there's a difference between relief and celebration. Relief is something that you feel when you're offered the opportunity of downtime in the midst of a struggle, where you get a little bit of downtime so that you can reassess and regroup. so that you can go back to the drawing board and figure out what your next steps are going to be. You require that. Celebration is when you've achieved something. You and I have not achieved anything. The people in Gaza, they can do whatever they want. They've earned it. If they choose to celebrate from now until Yawm al-Qiyamah, we have nothing to say, but barakallahu lahum. The amount of courage and the amount of bravery that they've shown takes away from any of us here the ability to judge anything that they do, or it's none of my business. They have earned their right to behave however they wish and to react to this ceasefire however it pleases them. But for you and I, we have to take this opportunity to recognize what it is. It is a moment of relief. You are offered a little bit of quiet time. In the midst of the noisy life that we all live in, on the fast lanes, as we are reacting, and we've been reacting for 470 days. 470 days of an ongoing genocidal attempt on the people of Gaza. A year and 3 months where we just every single day, every day without a day off, we got to watch our brothers and sisters pull their young ones and pull their relatives from under the rubble of their own homes. We are offered a little bit of relief, a moment to sleep a bit better, to regroup and reassess. You need that in life. Sometimes you need time out, just so you can go back and say, okay, where am I? What have I done? Where do I stand? How am I behaving? What needs to change? Because our generation, Yawm al-Qiyamah, is going to be asked about this. Most of life, brothers and sisters, is cruise control. Most of life is just it's smooth sailing. Most of it is. Most of it is the same days, just repeating themselves. You wake up, pray Fajr, you go to work, you come back, you have lunch, you pray Dhuhr, you pray Asr, you take your family somewhere, you come back, you pray Isha, you sleep, and then rinse and repeat. And you do this for a long time, and that's fine. It's a part of life. Part of life is these repetitive days. But then you're given these specific opportunities, these moments that stand out within your existence. Some people come and say, Wallahi, inshallah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, I'll do well, as long as Allah doesn't ask me about, and I say, stop right there. Whatever you're going to say next, that's exactly what He's going to ask you about. That is exactly what He's asking. That's all He's going to ask you about. Everything else is going to be quickly around, is going to just fast forward really quickly. And that one thing that you're not willing to talk about is the one thing He's going to ask you about for sure. It's that one thing that you're not willing to talk about. It's that one thing that you felt was a problem, and if that can just be ignored, it's not going to be ignored. That's what's going to be emphasized. Because life is just these moments in time where you're offered, when you were having dinner with your family and you watched people starving to death on TV, or you saw their pain, or you saw the pain in their eyes, or the agony that they were suffering. What did that do for you? What did that do for you? How did that change you? How did that affect you? What did you do based on that moment? Nothing. Nothing, you say. How are you going to argue this Yawm al-Qiyamah? What exactly is I'm interested to hear the argument for this. Oh, nothing. I just went on with my everything. We went back to normal. This is a moment of relief so that we can go back and reassess how we've been living our lives, and which direction we are taking, and how and what decisions we're going to be making as we move forward, and what this ummah means to us. This is not the struggle of one group of people. This represents the struggle of an ummah, of a nation that belongs to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and follows the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This ummah, this nation has struggles, and this is one of the central struggles of theirs. It represents something to us. It brought us together for over a year. For over a year, this is one problem that united us, despite our differences and despite our willingness and our desire to continue to emphasize our differences. This brought us all together again and forced us to be under the united banner of what we believed and what we believe to be the truth. And after witnessing this, if it still doesn't do anything, and if you're still not willing to make a change, if you go back to living exactly the way you were right before this, then this is a scary, scary thing. It's scary. On the Day of Judgment, I'm warning you. I stand here as a warner for you and for myself first, obviously, that things must change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted you this opportunity to see something, to witness a series of events that should have impact on how you decide to live your life moving forward. And that's how it works. That's how this works. It's how life is. Sometimes we need those wake-up calls, those moments in time that test our character, test our devotion, test our commitment. And this is what this has been. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to make these right choices and to turn the ship of this ummah in the right direction. And may Allah grant the people of Gaza the relief and the ease that they look for, and the victory as well. Allahumma ameen. Last week, I started talking about a series, or within a series, called Understanding Islam. And as simple as this title may be, I believe that within it you will find something, inshallah, for yourself to reflect upon. And the reason that I want to talk about it is because we all get born, most of the people sitting here were born into Islam. So for them, Islam is a part of their culture, right? It becomes a part of your culture. It's just what you're used to. When you're born into something and you never get you seldom get the opportunity to, not to question it, but to zoom out and see it for what it is. Like you get caught up in the nitty-gritty of every detail. You get caught up in detail sometimes and you lose the comprehension of the bigger picture of it all. And I think because most of us grew up in households where we were taught Islam, or we grew up listening to Islam being talked about by people who were very, very well engaged in this tradition and this practice, that sometimes we lack the ability to see things from a larger perspective or in a zoomed out manner. And this is what I'm trying to do within this series, to make sure that we're on the same page of what this deen is. Because it's the same faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught to Adam, that was given to Nuh and Ibrahim and to Musa and to Isa and to every other prophet, ending with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All that changed throughout history were the details of jurisprudence. Just certain details within jurisprudence, certain practices, certain allowances, and certain prohibitions in jurisprudence. That's it. Everything else has been pretty much the same. It's not just the concept of tawheed, it goes way beyond that. And last week I talked to you about the 3 pillars, or the 3 buckets, or the 3 dimensions, or the 3 domains of what Islam is. And the importance of everyone here making sure that they're investing in all 3 equally. That as you learn Islam, representing the rituals, the do's and the don'ts, and the obligations and the prohibitions, what you're supposed to do and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to be worshipped, not how we want to worship, but how He wants to be worshipped, learning that aspect of fiqh. You're also caring for the iman, which represents your theology, how you understand the perspectives, who Allah is to you, how you understand your existence on this blue-green bubble circulating around the sun, how you understand yourself and what your mission is and where you're going with it all, and who He is subhanahu wa ta'ala and what the nature of this relationship is, which is what iman is. And the 3rd domain, which is ihsan, understanding that there's a second entity on the inside that is actually sitting behind the steering wheel, and you're a shotgun thinking that somehow you're actually making a difference, but you're holding some steering wheel. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's like giving your younger brother a batteryless controller and say, go ahead, play. You're not really calling the shot. Someone else's. Understanding that everything that you do, there is an absence to it, just like there is an appearance, just like the fiqh of it is important, just like understanding why you're doing it is important. You have to understand how to do it internally, so that it means something, so that the intentions are correct, so that the spirit overcomes the powers of the selfish nafs that exists on the inside. These are the 3 domains of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ was asked a 4th question, however, within this hadith that I summarized this topic for you through. Hadith Jibreel, when Jibreel came to him and sat down, and they didn't know it was Jibreel initially, but he got everyone's attention. He looked different, and he sat there and he stuck his knees to the knees of the Prophet ﷺ with his hands on the Prophet ﷺ's thighs. And every time the Prophet answered the question, he told him, Sadaqt, correct. يقول عمر فتعجبنا يسأله ثم يصدقه. He found it very awkward. He asks him the question and then he tells him correct when he answers. Was he here to ask and learn, or is he here to evaluate the Prophet ﷺ? But when he finished asking those 3 questions, what is أخبرني يا محمد عن الإسلام وأخبرني عن الإيمان وأخبرني عن الإحسان? He asked him عن الساعة. When is the Sa'ah? This is different. You can say, well, are there 4 domains? No. Sa'ah is something that people knew what it was. Iman and Islam and Ihsan are words in Arabic that were defined Islamically. They have a nomenclature within Islam. The word Islam linguistically means to submit, but for us it has a different meaning. Just like the word Iman means something linguistically, but has a different meaning for us Islamically. As-Sa'ah is something that everyone knew what was meant by it. We were talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah. So he told him, tell me about it. So he answered and said, مَا الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْهَا بِأَعْلَمَ مِنَ السَّائِلِ. So he answered 3 times with giving information, but this time he didn't. He said the person that's being asked is no more knowledgeable about it than the person who's asking it. Like the person who's asking the question knows just as much as I do. I don't know. And they asked him, أخبرني عن أماراتها. Tell me things that tell us it's coming close. And he gave a few examples, عليه الصلاة والسلام. أن تلد الأمة ربتها وأن ترى رعاء الشاة يتطاولون في البنيان, in different wordings of this hadith. One day there'll be extreme uquq, where someone will give birth to someone who will later on rule them. And you will see the people who are extremely poor, from very poor backgrounds with very little education and very little values, will become very rich and will build skyscrapers and will think that they own the world. regardless of that piece, and we'll talk about that later, the reason that he talked about As-Sa'ah, because this is how you secure the formula. In order for this to work, in order for this to actually function, yes, you need to fill in these buckets simultaneously, equally. You have to give an equal amount of attention to your understanding of Islam and Iman and Ihsan. You have to have a madhab where you learn how to worship God appropriately. You have to have a maslak so you understand what exactly who Allah is and what relationship you have with Him. That's what Aqeedah is, by the way. I know that we like spending time in Aqeedah talking about all these nitty-gritty details that are philosophically impossible to understand and no one fully comprehends them. But Aqeedah is here to understand, to help you understand who Allah is so you can understand who you are to Him and what you're here to do and what your mission is. That's what Aqeedah is designed to do, actually. It's what it did for the Sahaba before us. And you invest equally into ihsan, into understanding yourself and purifying your heart and cleansing your nafs from all of the diseases that will hold you back and will put barriers between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in order for these things to work, there is there's a context. This ratio needs to be on top of something. There has to be a number under it that allows it to make any sense. For this formula to have for it to work at all, there has to be the conceptualization of mortality and accountability. Without these two words, everything I tell you is a waste of breath. It's a waste of time. Unless this is 100% clear to everyone listening to me that you are mortal and you will die, and that could come any time. I cannot swear that I will leave this masjid today. I cannot be sure that I'll end this khutbah today, just like you can't either. May Allah grant you long lives with good health and great deeds, but we cannot know this for sure. And that concept of mortality is central within our deen. Without it, nothing makes sense. There's no argument that works. You can't convince someone to do, there's no way for you to convince yourself or anyone else for that matter to do anything good if you were immortal. Go ahead, try. Think about it. Try to convince me to do anything. Forget about Islam. Convince me to do anything if I was immortal. Whatever I can't do today, I'll just do tomorrow. All I have is time. And if I don't do it tomorrow, you know what? I'll do it the day after. And if not, then the day after. Who cares? I have an infinite number of days, so there's no reason for me to be in a hurry to do anything. Without the concept of mortality, the word sa'ah explains this, that you are going to die, meaning your time is limited. You're not here forever. You're on the clock. The clock is ticking. Someone took that glass sand clock and turned it around the day you were born. And as we speak, it's running out. As we speak, you're running out of sand. You're going to move on soon enough. 100 years from now, not one person in this room will be here. What's 100 years in the life of nations, or in the history of planet Earth, or in the history of the cosmos? It's nothing. 100 years is absolutely nothing. It's not even something that's worth talking about. And yet, for us, it's all we got. It's all we got, those 1,000 months that we're here for. That's it. That's if you're lucky. If you're very fortunate, He gives you that long. Otherwise, most people don't get that. Having that concept of mortality, and then having, in addition to it, because without this other piece, it doesn't work either, accountability. That you're going to be asked about it all. There's going to be questioning at the end. You're going to be held responsible for the time that you spend here. Or else, really, everything I'm explaining to you doesn't really, what's the point? Why would you care? Why would you care about Islam or Iman or Ihsan or any of this? The only thing that ties these things all together, the only thing that makes them worthy of your investment and worthy of your focus is the fact that we are mortal and that we are going to be held accountable. This piece is central. This is the underlying context for everything that is explained in our deen. And Muslims have to be the people, in my opinion, who understand this and accept this the most amongst all people on the planet. They are living their lives knowing that they are headed towards an inevitable end, and that after that end, there's going to be a moment where they have to actually explain themselves, explain their choices and decisions. So we're living for that. That's how we're living. We're focused on making sure that on the day of judgment, I have my arguments. I can defend my choices. That I have enough in this scale to make up for all the garbage in the other one. Without this conceptualization of life, then really it's just, this is why none of this works, really. The reason that none of this works, the reason that there's millions of khutbahs that are happening as I speak, all across the globe, with with a billion people, at least, that are listening to them, and nothing happens, it's because this peace isn't there. There's no sense of urgency. And there's no, what is the problem with the Arab when the Prophet ﷺ came to them? The problem with the Arab believed in Allah. They accepted La ilaha illallah, but they just believed that there was a few people helping them out. Some asnam, right? That had to be moved out theologically. No, this is, there's no associates. There's no one who to come up with a different law. There's no one who can go and speak to God on your behalf and intercede and just fix the problem, and you can do whatever you want because you have someone who's speaking to the boss. No, that doesn't exist. Remove all of that. It's with you, it's God, it's whatever He says, you stick to it. But then the real problem, if you go to the Quran, was that they didn't believe that they were going to be resurrected. زَعَمَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. The disbelievers, they claim أَلَّن يُبْعَثُوا, that they will not be resurrected. قُلْ, say this, بَلَى, oh yes indeed you will. وَرَبِّي, and I swear by my Lord. لَتُبْعَثُنَّ, and I swear again that indeed, most certainly, the mu'akkidat in Arabic are really interesting things, emphasizing linguistic tools. In Arabic, there's these tools that we use to emphasize stuff. In English, it doesn't really exist. You have to use a word, like indeed or whatever. But in Arabic, you just use these small little additions. So this answer was bala, so is for idrab, is to flip whatever the person said first. They said, لَن يُبْعَثُوا, they won't be resurrected, bala, no, you're going to be. It's to flip whatever they said. وَرَبِّي, it's a qasam, he's taking an oath. La, lam here, muwatti' al-qasam, so another oath that is hidden within the word. تُبْعَثُنَّ, and then the noon here is a noon of emphasis. And it's noon al-mughallaba, so it's a heavier one. There's two types of noons that we use to emphasize a sentence. لَتُبْعَثُنَّ with a sukoon, or تُبْعَثُنَّ with a shadda. The shadda is obviously stronger because it's two letters. So his answer is قُلْ بَلَى وَرَبِّي لَتُبْعَثُنَّ. You're going to be resurrected. ثُمَّ لَتُنَبَّؤُنَّ. And then, indeed, most certainly, I swear to you, it will be recited back to you what you did, بِمَا عَمِلْتُمْ. You'll be informed of all what you did. You'll be informed of it because you won't be willing to, because most of us won't be willing to admit it. Because most of us won't be willing to admit it, or we put in a lot of effort to forget it. It's easier. It's the only way to survive, really, is to forget stuff. Honestly, if you continuously thought about the suffering of others, you would live differently. But it's just easier to, let's see if I can forget about it. I'll go do something where I can just not think about this problem, so that I can enjoy life, because I don't want to think about the problem. And we do that with our lives to the point where we actually forget some of the milestones, some of the cornerstones of our existence. We forget about them. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, we've actually forgot. Some of these things, we've actually forgot about them. So we are informed of them. وَذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. And that is easy for the Almighty. He does that with full ease. He'll show it all to you. The thread that ties it all together, the context, the background, the layout of our deen, is accepting your mortality and comprehending your accountability. Once one of these two doesn't exist, once you live as if you're not going anywhere, and you refuse to think about death, and you refuse to accept it, and you're in this ongoing struggle of its existence altogether, and you're scared of it as if it is the thing to be afraid of, if you're afraid of it as if it is the scariest thing in the world, when it's not the scariest thing in the world. The scariest thing in the world is what's going to happen after it if you didn't make good choices beforehand. That's the scariest thing in the world. That's what we have to be afraid of. Death itself is just, we're always afraid of transition. No one likes moving from one place to the other. No one likes to be removed from their familiar environment. That's normal. But it's not the scariest thing in the world. What's scary, what comes next, is the accountability. And if we don't understand both of them, and if we don't actually embrace both of them, then I'm telling you, there's nothing I can do, or any other speaker for that matter, in the world to make any changes to anybody. The reason the Prophet ﷺ was so effective is he invested heavily in this aspect with the Sahaba first. It was a little bit, I want to say it was easier, but the Sahaba themselves were much more capable of understanding it, because living back then, the death was something they saw more often. They were much more in tune with that. They accepted it. People died in wars all the time, in famine, disease. People didn't live. The median age today is 82. It was 39 back then. This is during his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. If you made it to 40, you had gone far. So we were much more accepting of death. We don't accept it as much, and we distance ourselves from the thought of it. And right now, as I speak to you about it, you're uncomfortable and you hope that I end it. Because you talk about something else. Talk about something fun, something that we can enjoy, something walk away. I can, but if this is not there, if this piece of the formula is not not there, if it doesn't exist, if you don't understand it, then it's not going to work. It's not, the button, you'll press it, it won't work. It won't work. Because you have to have that peace. You have to have accepted your mortality. It has to have affected how you live your life, and you have to be focused on the fact that you're going to be held accountable. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده. إخواني وأخواتي، الأسبوع الماضي تحدثتكم عن الدعائم الثلاث لهذا الدين، الإسلام والإيمان والإحسان، كما أخبرنا بذلك سيدنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث جبريل المشهور لما جاءه فسأله، ثم قال عليه الصلاة والسلام في آخر الحديث: أتدرون من هذا؟ فقالوا: الله ورسوله أعلم. فقال: هذا جبريل أتاكم يعلمكم دينكم. تعليم الدين بشكل عام، هذا ما تجد حديث آخر، لا تجد حديثا آخر يستخدم فيه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هذا التعبير، يقول هذا أتاكم ليعلمكم الدين كله. نعم، في هذا الحديث أتاكم، علمكم كل الدين، أخبركم عن الإسلام، أخبركم عن الشعائر وعن التطبيقات والأوامر وعن النواهي وعن المستحبات والمندوبات والمكروهات، وأخبركم عن الإيمان، الفهم من هو الله، معرفة الله ومعرفة الذات ومعرفة القدر وفهم هذه الغيبيات ومعرفة حال النفس وعلاقتها مع ربها. ثم الإحسان، هذا الأمر الروحي المتعلق في داخل الإنسان، وهذا الصراع الأزلي الأبدي بين الروح وبين النفس، أن لكل شيء في الوجود باطنا، وأن هذا الباطن هو بمقدار أهمية الظاهر، فإذا أفسد الإنسان واحدا من هذه الدعائم سقط الدين كله، ومشى الإنسان مشى الأعرج، ولم يستطع أن يصل إلى مبتغاه وإلى هدفه لأنه قصر في واحد من هذه الثلاث. لكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في هذا الحديث سئل سؤالا آخر، سئل عن الساعة، والساعة ليست دعامة رابعة، فالساعة قضية معروفة يعرفها العرب وينكرونها، ويعرفها لما سأل ما الإسلام، فالإسلام لها معنى لغوي، والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في هذا الحديث عرفها بالاصطلاح الشرعي. وكذلك لما سأل ما الإيمان، فالإيمان له معنى لغوي، والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أجاب إجابة يعرف الإيمان تعريفا اصطلاحيا شرعيا، وكذلك الإحسان. أما الساعة فهذا أمر معروف لا يحتاج إلى تعريف. فلما سئل قال: ما أخبرني عن الساعة؟ فقال: ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل، علمي فيها مثل علمك، ما أعرف عنها شيئا. فسئل عن أماراتها فأجاب إجابة عليه الصلاة والسلام نتحدث عنها في خطبة أخرى. لكن لماذا سأل عنها؟ لأن الخلفية التي تمسك الإسلام والإيمان والإحسان، الخيط الذي يربطهم جميعا، الفهم الذي يحتاجه المسلم حتى يحقق الإسلام والإيمان والإحسان فيه مراد الله سبحانه وتعالى، هو قبول الموت وقبول المسؤولية والمحاسبة يوم القيامة. إذا فقد هذا المعنى لا يبقى لأي كلام أقوله غاية ولا هدف ولا تأثير، وهي مضيعة للوقت. والله لا، أصلا ملايين الخطب، فكر، مليارات الخطب خطبت منذ وفاته عليه الصلاة والسلام، مليارات البشر يحضرون، فلا يتغير في الناس إلا لماذا؟ لأن هناك جزء من المعادلة في جزئية نحتاج إليها في المعادلة، هو مقام هذا البسط، هذا الكسر فيه له مقام، إذا شلت المقام البسط لا يفسر. نحتاج إلى فهم الموت، قبول الموت وقبول الآخرة، وأن هناك مساءلة ومحاسبة. أقنعني بالقيام بأي شيء إذا أزلت الموت أو أزلت المحاسبة. إذا أزلتهما من المعادلة والله ما تستطيع أن تقنعني أن أفعل أي شيء وأن أتبع أي أحد أن أغير في حياتي إلا ما أرى فيه مصلحتي المباشرة. لكننا كمسلمين قبلنا الموت وقبلنا المحاسبة وآمنا باليوم الآخر، وهذا الذي يربط كل هذه المسائل. إذا أردت للإسلام أن يفعل فيك فعله في صحابة رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام، فليكن لهذين المعنيين عندك شيء. See, the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام lived his life differently. This is an admission that I'm offering you and something to reflect upon. He didn't live the same way. He enjoyed life similarly. I believe he enjoyed life way more. I believe that if you accept mortality, you live way better. At the beginning, you feel maybe a little bit depressed or sad because you've been living under a false illusion. There's an illusion that you've accepted that you're living forever, which is not the truth. And you haven't really confronted the fact that you're not here forever and that this could end any time and you're not guaranteed any specific amount of time. But we don't want to think about it, so we live under this illusion. We accept this lie that we tell ourselves. The Prophet ﷺ didn't live like that. He accepted the fact that it could end any time. He was okay with it. Initially, when you do that, you feel down, but then it actually rebounds in a way that the moment, if you think you're going to die, and then someone offers you another moment, that is by far the happiest moment of your entire life. Psychologically, there are studies that we cannot quote anymore because they're ethically wrong and they were removed from the textbooks of psychology, but if you go back, you'll find them, where they would lie to people, where they would literally lie and tell them you're going to be dead in two months. They would bring a doctor in and have them lie to people. And then watch them live, how they would do, and then tell them that you're not going to die, and then take that reaction for them. It's unethical, and it should never happen. But for the fact that it already did, and I can't really it already did happen, most of them, over 75% of them changed their ways. Because it's a moment of truth. Imagine living like that all the time. Imagine seeing every moment as a gift, as a blessing. It could have ended, now it didn't, alhamdulillah. The sky is bluer. The air, it touches your face in a nicer way. Everything smells nicer. You see people, you're happier to see them. Your family, you love them more. He lived, alayhi salatu wasalam. He really did. When you look at him, and you look the way he lived, with the little that he had, he was alive. He was alive and he was well. And he loved the people around him and he was busy every moment of the day and he found peace and fulfillment because for him, life every moment was something that he was not guaranteed and he was happy that he had it. And also it was guided by al-akhirah. I'm going to end this khutbah with a story that should explain that to you. And I've narrated this hadith a couple of times, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but it's one of my all-time favorites. And it explains to you how he sees the world, alayhi salatu wasalam, how he taught the Sahaba. One day, in the hadith of Ahmad and Tirmidhi, he was brought, alayhi salatu wasalam, meat. It was a full sheep that was slaughtered. It's a big deal. It's a lot of meat back then. Sheep are quite expensive. They still are today. Still hard to get one yourself today. Back then, same thing, probably even more. It was gifted to him. The whole thing was slaughtered, and it was ready to be cooked, basically. Now, anyone else probably would have taken that inside. He hadn't eaten meat for a long time, alayhi salatu wasalam. His family had not. He took the knife and started cutting pieces and into small pieces, and then he would call Aisha, give me this, give me that, give me this piece, and he would gift it to this person. Give me this piece, and gift it to that person. He made sure everyone, Ahl Sufa, took some meat with them. And then everyone who came and asked, he kept on giving and giving and giving. And then he finally called upon Aisha and said, Ya Aisha, ma baqiya minha. What's left? So she responded to him, and he sensed in her voice, like he heard, a little bit of disgruntlement. She wasn't happy. And I don't blame her, honestly. I would probably feel the same way. I don't think anyone wouldn't feel the same way that she did, but unless you were able to see the world through the lens that he put on his eyes, alayhi salatu wasalam, that we're supposed to, as Muslims, be putting on our own. This is how we're supposed to see things. فَقَالَتْ لَمْ يَبْقَ مِنْهَا إِلَّا الْكَتِفِ. All that's left is the shoulder of it. Well, you want to take that as well and give it away? If that's all that's left is the shoulder. So he sensed her frustration, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was outside happy. He was outside happy. He was giving away. There was joy. He gave her family, alayhi salatu wasalam. He gave Abu Bakr, by the way. He gave her family as well. He found joy in it, but she was like, we haven't seen meat in a long time in the house. So he walks in the house, alayhi salatu wasalam. He didn't say, فَقَالَ يَا عَائِشَةَ قال بل بقيت كلها إلا الكتف. I said, no, you're wrong. All of it is left for us, except this one, except the shoulder. See, we sent it all to the day of judgment. It's waiting for us on the other side. All of it, except the shoulder that you and I are going to eat. And then it's going to leave our bodies somewhere outside and it'll go into the ground. We're going to be asked about it. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it? Was it good? How did it taste? What did you say before you started? What did you say afterwards? What did you use the energy that you extracted from it for? But the rest of it is waiting for us on the right scales, Yawm al-Qiyamah. بقيت كلها يا عائش. All of it is left for us. إلا الكتف. That requires a certain mentality. That requires a certain understanding of this world and life in general. To be able to say something, to feel it the way he did, alayhi salatu wasalam, just requires a different outlook, different perspective. It's the underlying It's the underlying context of our deen. I can talk to you about Islam and Iman and Ihsan and the madhab and the maslak and the mashrab and how to do it. If you don't see life if you don't accept your mortality, the finiteness of our existence, if it's not clear to you, if you don't understand that on the Day of Judgment you're going to be brought back and you're going to be held accountable for what you did, if that's not clear, then we'll just continue with this charade until time is up. Because it turns into a charade, really. Which is why the Quran kept, I dare you, find a surah in the Quran that doesn't talk about Yawm al-Qiyamah, aside from the really small ones at the end of Jummah. Every surah in Yawm al-Qiyamah will talk about, every surah in the Quran will talk about Yawm al-Qiyamah at least a little bit. Why? Because without that, there's no surah in the Quran its theme is Yawm al-Qiyamah. No, not even the surah called Qiyamah is its theme. Not even that. Because the Qiyamah is never a theme in the surah. It's just the background of the whole Quran. The whole Quran is based on you accepting that this is going to happen, that there are moments you're going to witness, and you're going to be accountable for what you've done. All of us is being recorded, and we're going to be asked about it. Once that becomes clear, the formula is secured. Because it's easy for me to help you with that. I can explain to you what you need to know about Islam, and what you need to know about Iman, and how to strengthen your ihsan. And we can fill those buckets as we go on, together, hand in hand, as an ummah. But if we don't accept it, if we don't secure the formula appropriately, if to me and you, our mortality and our accountability are not something that are maxims for us, that we've accepted, then there's a missing link, there's a missing piece of this formula that renders it non-functional, that renders it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. And it eventually fails, even if at the beginning it seems like it's working. I hope that was a benefit to you. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَنَا بِأَمْرٍ عَظِيمٍ فَقَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وارض اللهم عن أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر الميامين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات اللهم فرج هموم المهمومين ونفس كروب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين وارفع الظلم عن المظلومين واحقن دماءنا ودماء المسلمين اللهم احقن دماء إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان احقن دماءهم في غزة احقن دماءهم في بلاد الشام احقن دماءهم في مصر والسودان وفي كشمير وفي الصين وفي غيرها من بلاد الأرض يا رب العالمين اللهم اجمع كلمة المسلمين على الحق والتوحيد على الوجه الذي يرضيك عنا وعنهم في الدنيا والآخرة يا رب العالمين اللهم رد المسجد الأقصى إلى رحاب المسلمين أخرج الصهاينة منه أذلة صاغرين أبقه عزيزا معززا إلى يوم الدين ارزقنا أجمعين فيه صلاة قبل الممات يا رب العالمين اللهم ردنا إليك أجمعين ردا جميلا وتب علينا من جميع ذنوبنا توبة نصوحا طهرنا بها قلبا وجسدا وروحا وما ذلك عليك اللهم بعزيز ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون أقم الصلاة